Looking for a cloud platform that offers full control without the hyperscaler lock-in? OpenNebula could be the answer. With advanced features like seamless Kubernetes integration, dynamic workload management across hybrid and edge environments, and robust multi-tenancy, it's built for businesses that need flexibility and scale. Today we're joined by CEO and co-founder of OpenNebula, Ignacio Llorente, to break down how this open source platform delivers enterprise-level cloud solutions with the freedom to tailor your infrastructure. And don't forget to follow and give us a like, hit that alert button as well if you're on YouTube or on the podcast platforms, give us a follow there. This is episode 91 of Great Things with Great Tech. Welcome to the show, Ignacio.
Okay, thank you very much for having me here. I have to say that it's exciting to be here. I look forward to our conversation.
Yeah, and like I told in the pre-show, Ignacio, you're actually kind of one of my semi-technical heroes in terms of OpenNebula and the hosting world and infrastructure and front ends. It's just amazing the journey that OpenNebula has been on. Since I first started using it all the way back in, I think it was 2008, which, pretty much was when you first launched the product. But before we get into all the good stuff about OpenNebula, where you guys are today in the market and, how certain trends like Broadcom and VMware are shaping the future of OpenNebula, give a little bit of a background about the company, what it is, what it does, and why you created the company.
Of course, yeah. Well, OpenNebula Systems is an infrastructure software company. We have a single product, the OpenNebula Cloud Management Platform, which is fully open source and Apache license. For us, open source is, I would say, the main instrument, the main enabler for collaboration and innovation. From a business perspective, our business model is based on an annual enterprise subscription that include, the SLA support, maintained packages, and access to knowledge base. I think that one very good OpenNebula is that we are fully open source. So we have companies that they buy, this subscription, but when they are no longer using it, they are not paying an annual subscription anymore. So they can continue using the software. So I think that is the best thing of OpenNebula. It's a way to engage, of course, users, a way to increase adoption, and at the same time, you don't have any lock-in.
Yeah, so OpenNebula is a cloud computing platform, right? So yeah. I've had a few of these on in the past, and I think my listeners are quite in tune with what a CMP is. What makes OpenNebula different to the rest, I think, is a good question to start with.
Yeah, this is an excellent question. In cloud, there is not one size fits all, right? We cannot easily compare, OpenNebula with our main competitors. I don't know, other Neutrality or VMware, others. It strongly depends on the use case. When a prospect asks us to do this benchmarking, we always ask them to describe the specific use case requirements. So because we receive different types, of demands, and we want there to specify very clearly what they want to build. When we receive their request, we can see this fits in the features provided by OpenNebula. Okay, OpenNebula not compare with different tools. In principle, it's fully open source, Apache license. It's very simple. We wanted from the beginning to bring simplicity to the cloud edge. For us, is a priority. Single integrated product that is simple, flexibility as well. OpenNebula is quite modular. So when we designed OpenNebula, we wanted to do something following the Linux type architecture. So something that is with a very scalable core that can be federated peer-to-peer, but at the same time provide northbound APIs, southbound APIs to easily integrate other components in the data center. Because our experience is that when someone wants to build a very big cloud environment, they want the cloud management platform to be integrated with the process, with the networking, with the monitoring that they are now running. Okay, and the main thing is probably vendor neutrality. We think for us, it's part of our strategy, our vision. Our vision is to bring vendor neutrality to the cloud edge. We talk probably later about this, but OpenNebula is not only about the enterprise cloud. We are now, bringing remote hybrid multi-cloud resources to that enterprise cloud following a complete vendor neutral approach.
When you say vendor neutral, is that from the point of view of who you work with in terms of the hardware and the software and the networking, or is it more an approach in terms of the actual hypervisors that you would support?
No, I mean, we can support in principle. I mean, we have to differentiate between what OpenNebula is able to do and what we are able to provide support from a commercial perspective, right? From the integration perspective, OpenNebula can be integrated with different hypervisors, different storage backend, monitoring, backends. But when we provide commercial support, of course, we provide support only for those components that we have tested and we have provided certification, right? When we talk about neutrality in the cloud environments, what we bring is a way to use any cloud provider in a neutral way. The idea is that when we go to the cloud edge, we use bare metal resources from AWS or from Azure, Europe from OVX. And what we do is we automate the deployment of OpenNebula clusters on those bare metal resources. It's like we create like OpenNebula overlay, OpenNebula distributed environment. That is great because that means that what you run on AWS is a cluster of OpenNebula with our own hypervisors. And that means that you can manage all the resources in distributed environment in the same way, the same images, the same policies. Even you can migrate, okay? You can do live migration of workloads across AWS, with Azure, with Google, okay? Very easily. So this is our approach to, to neutrality and approach to the cloud edge. Of course, if a company comes and they say, hey, I use high-level services or AWS, and I want you to create a clone of what they provide, we are not able to do that. We are infrastructure service, and we are able to bring this neutrality, okay, to the multi-cloud, as long as what you want to do is to run VMs. And on top of those VMs, you can encapsulate what you want. You can Kubernetes, MapReduce, anything, AI processing now, okay, anything.
Yeah. So that's where you are kind of today, which is obviously very different to when you started, because the world was different back in 2008, 2010, right? The infrastructure as a service was just starting. We didn't have really the likes of AWS was around, but it wasn't as popular as what it was. I mean, it took probably 2 to 3 years to get there. So what made you found the company? I mean, the journey began in 2008. It was the first European developed cloud management technology, I believe. So, what was it like back then? So what were you trying to achieve, and yourself starting the company?
It's very good question, Anthony, because I think that most people do not know that we have been in the market for a while. You said our first technology preview was in March 2008. I mean, I think Amazon EC2 was announced in August 2006. Okay. But in many ways, it feels like we started before that, because this first version of OpenNebula incorporated many methods for management of distributed systems that we developed for cluster and grid computing since the 90s. Let me explain a little bit. OpenNebula started as a spin-off of a European project in collaboration with IBM and Telefonica. So at that time, the expertise of our research group, because we come from academia, was mostly in distributed and grid computing. This is about management, orchestration, jobs, workloads across computing cluster and data centers, HPC mostly, okay? And in 2006, I remember perfectly, in a workshop by the European Space Agency, we saw a demo of a live migration of virtual machines across hypervisors. I think it was a demo by Red Hat. And we said, hey, pal, this is huge. I mean, when we saw this demo, a VM live migration across 2 different servers, we said, okay, this is the future.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah, exactly. And so we said, hey, why don't we apply all our knowledge, all the algorithms we have used for distributed system for job computing? Why don't we apply all of this knowledge, this know-how to the management of VMs? So that was our first, release of OpenNebula. And then we started building more components because, cloud is not only about management of placement of VMs. Cloud is as well about multi-tenancy, elasticity, provisioning capabilities, because you had to provide this service on demand. But, we started bottom up. We started building, a tool to manage the VMs and orchestrate the VMs in a data center, something like, I don't know, a bit center that VMware.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the idea. And then we, on top of that, we built, you know, the cloud APIs and all the cloud capabilities. That's the reason why you see the architecture and we see the interest of OpenNebula is quite Linux, you know, oriented, you know, the command line interface we had, you know, the design we did, everything was done according to this Linux orientation. And at the beginning, most of our users were administrators, you know, that use Linux because they saw in OpenNebula a way to manage the whole data center as a unique system. Because I mean, my view is that, you know, the cloud management platform is like the operating system of the data center. You orchestrate the data center, and you had to offer, you know, APIs on top. You had to offer drivers to interact with the underlying platforms. So this was our first idea. Yeah.
So because I remember trialing OpenNebula along with a bunch of other ones, probably around 2009, 2010. Unfortunately, back then, I mean, not unfortunately from my perspective, because it meant that my career was a bit of a different trajectory, but I went down the vCloud director path. But I remember testing, you know, OpenNebula, CloudStack, OpenStack, and then vCloud Director. And just because of the relationship, vCloud Director kind of was what we chose. But I remember very specifically being always very in tune and liking what OpenNebula did. And in fact, we mentioned in the pre-show, one of the Australian infrastructure providers, Orion VM, they chose OpenNebula and basically took it and forked it, and I think, and basically offered it as their cloud. And they're still around today, by the way, you know, 15, 16 years later. It's quite interesting. But I always was drawn to it because I liked the simplicity of it. And the fact that the management platform that you offered was pretty cool at the time from memory. Like, the one thing that stood out even back then was that the control panel was very slick and looked the most ultra modern of the lot. So talk a little bit about how you transitioned from the Linux CLI into becoming a fully fledged cloud platform in the early 2010s.
Yeah. You know, most of when we started doing, you know, OpenNebula, I mean, we being open source is great because being open source means that you have direct contact with the users. So we have always followed user-driven approach that I think is quite good. So we get feedback from the users. I mean, they have apps, you know, in the testing, development, defining the roadmap, and all they guide us about what to incorporate in the software. Okay, sometimes those are not very, you know, fancy innovations. These are very things that you need in order for operations. Okay, but something that they require. At the same time, we have been part of many EU innovation projects, and that is good as well because European innovation projects, there are two things. They provide funding, of course, for incorporating innovation into the open source project, and at the same time, you have direct contact with the main, you know, European companies, okay, and telco companies, you know, cloud providers, and we learn a lot, and we incorporate all the feedback as well to the software. So one is I mean, we are here in the company because we love, you know, technology, we love research, we love to do innovation, and open source is like the right instrument to engage all of them. We have many users that are not customers. I mean, I can tell you that our conversion ratio is about probably between 5 and 10%. I mean, in open source, you don't know who is using the software. I mean, you have an estimation of the number of downloads, but you don't know if those companies, you know, finally decided to use this in production. So sometimes you receive emails, but, you know, big companies say, hey, we have been using OpenNebula for 10 years, for a while, and now we need enterprise support. And this is as well the good thing of open source. I think we did this open source because we wanted to grow the adoption. And it's like to plant seeds in different organizations. So the thing is that they start using the open source, but eventually they need services from us. Oh, and that's good, you know? And we use this funding, this revenue, in order to improve the software itself. So this is more or less the model. Okay, we have followed these years.
Yeah, And it fascinates me. A lot of the companies that I talk to that are out of Europe, I've had a few now. They've all seemed to come up through either university or government or European Union grants.
Mm.
So it seems like the EU really funds that ground technology for the young entrepreneurs coming through university, or even if they're just out of uni and a few years out of work. Is that kind of how you started this as well? It was out of a, I think you mentioned it was out of a research project, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that still something that's very powerful in Europe?
Yeah, yes, yes. I mean, in Europe, I mean, we have these programs that provide funding, okay, for research projects. I mean, it's not that they provide funding for individual companies; they provide funding for innovation projects, okay. And this means that it's a good thing because this means that you have to build a consortium, okay. That means that you have to find partners in other different member states in the European Union, and that's good, okay, for collaboration. And it's good as well for us because that means that you have people that can provide feedback. They use the software, they incorporate new features. So it's good. I mean, I think it's a combination. For me, you have grants. Okay, the grants are very good to have those and participate in this project because they bring the cool, innovative capabilities to OpenNebula. That's great. But at the same time, of course, you need direct contact with customers running in production. These are different environments. One thing is, the typical research innovative capability. Another thing is, hey, which needs you have in order to run this in production, scalability, reliability. Those are features that maybe they do not come from research grant. They do come from real needs from a commercial perspective. So it's more that the short, medium term, roadmap is defined by real needs from production environments, and the long term is more driven by these, projects, okay, that provide the funding in order to incorporate these features, and that's great. I
Okay,
mean,
yeah.
yeah. Let me. I mean, give you one very good example because now we are
Yes, please. Yeah.
we are a core partner of the IPSI in next generation cloud infrastructure services. IPSI is IPSI. I think it stands for Important Project of Common European Interest. This is huge. This budget is 2.8 billion euros. Okay.
Wow.
Billion. Yeah. This is large. You can consider this project as the largest ever open source project in Europe related to cloud computing. It started a few months ago. It's 5 years project, and the project is an integrated project with more than 100 European companies. You have SAP, you have Amadeus, you have Orange, Siemens, Telefonica, Telecom Italia. Okay, and the OpenNebula is one of the core partners, and OpenNebula is leading the technical coordination of the whole project. This application group, and we are with SAP. We are leading that thing. So for us, it's a huge opportunity. But it's not only opportunity about the funding. It's great to have the funding, of course. It's opportunity about the positioning, about this number of integrations that we're going to do in the context of this unique project. And this project is somehow about sovereignty, because that the cloud market in the EU is dominated by a few big tech corporations for non-EU companies, okay? I think that the market share of European companies in the European cloud market is below 10%. So the idea is to fix this oligopolistic structure of the cloud market by collaborating in the development of the vendor-neutral open source cloud technologies that are able to somehow to level the playing field. So we want to level the playing field in the cloud market to increase the competitiveness and relevance of EU providers. So the idea here, for example, in our case, is with OpenNebula, we are building vendor-neutral layer across different cloud providers following this bare metal approach that I explained at the beginning. And if we are able to do that, that means that users can run workloads across different cloud providers, but there is no lock-in there because you can very easily migrate across providers.
No lock-in.
Yeah, and that allows to include, new, smaller players here, so you don't have to use the big tech corporations. So this is huge, and this is a very big opportunity. I mean, excited about this. And as I said, it's not only about the funding; it's about this collaborative environment that we are creating in Europe.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of the providers of not fighting back probably isn't the right word, but there's an understanding that there's a virtual monopoly with regards to the public cloud and infrastructure providers, not just in
Exactly.
Europe,
Yeah.
but around the world. Not just in Europe, right? It's the same everywhere. No matter where you are, the big three dominate, and then there might be another one or two players, right? So I've seen a few. I've seen like it, for example, Chivo Cloud or Civo Cloud out of England. They do K3 hosting or Kubernetes hosting. They've been very big on fighting against the lock-in that the public cloud providers do offer, right? So it's very big, and I've seen it quite often that it is coming out, especially out of Europe. There's a bit of a fight back. It's important to offer the customers the understanding that they are not locked in, and I
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
your talking point around workloads moving from one to another with freedom is very important, because I remember even back at the very start of cloud, that was the idea. The idea was you could take a workload, you could move it where you want, get charged over here, move it here, get charged over there, but don't feel that you're locked into one. So it's almost like the consumer or the company or the organization who's buying the service should be the one that's taking advantage of it. But what's happened with the public cloud world is that the big companies are taking advantage of them.
Yeah. Let me give you a very good example, because now, many of our customers are in the gaming industry, okay? And for example, edge computing is one of the requirements, because they want to run low latency services. So when they want to start, a new game, or they want to release, a development version or whatever, they need to create on demand, like cloud edge overlay or cloud edge, infrastructure close to the different cities where they want to launch the game.
Yep.
And the thing here is that with OpenNebula, they define what they need. Hey, I need these services to run with these latencies. So with OpenNebula, you can select which specific bare metal cloud providers, which specific locations you need. So you build that environment and do them provision on demand, of the OpenNebula clusters. And in 30 minutes, you have a distributed cloud OpenNebula where you can submit your VMs or your Kubernetes. And once the gaming, for any reason you don't want to continue with the service, it's quite easy. You just the provision, okay, and you stop paying, this cloud and edge provider. So it's building like a dynamic cloud edge environment on demand, using the resources that you really need. Okay, and I feel this is huge. It's like, hey, I have a big cloud edge, worldwide, and I can use those resources that I want for the time I need and for the specific execution of the software stack that I need and where I want it to be, and that is a huge step. I just said, and the thing is that this is completely vendor neutral. You can use AWS, you can use Equinix, you can use OVH, Scaleway, any new provider. The important thing is the pricing and SLA pricing and performance. Okay, SLA latency, right? So those are the three concepts: the cost, the SLA of the reliability of the resource, and the latency. Okay, for the execution of the service. Yeah.
How does that get managed in that sort of free flowing scenario? The federation, right? We would traditionally, I'd say it's federated compute, right? How does the billing? How does the SLA? How does that all come into play? The quality and guarantee of service. I'm interested in that, because you are at the sort of the behemoth, or sorry, you're at the sort of you're at the. I'm trying to find the right word, which I've lost. Basically, the cloud provider that you're on is where you're going to suffer and deal the SLA. So how do you OpenNebula deal with that?
Yeah, so you have to see that we are a technology provider, not a service provider, right? So we provide a technology. If you are an application provider company, a gaming company, for example, you say, okay, I need this environment. You can go to OpenNebula. We have one tool that is, the name is one provision. In the one provision, you see which providers are registered. For example, I don't know, I have AWS, I have Equinix, and you see different locations. And you have to, the account it's yours. I mean, it's not ours. I mean, you had to set
Okay,
up your account there,
yeah.
and it depending on which resources you want to use, this is the SLA. So the agreement about the SLA is between you and the provider, not us. I mean, we provide the technology so you can define those things. So I mean, so you have different type of resources with different pricing, different type of SLA, different type of latency, and you play around with that. I mean, now in the context of this IPSI project, we are implementing an AI, dashboard that helps, in the definition of the resources, for example.
Yeah. So basically, private, hybrid, and edge computing is where the technology will span across, and it really depends on what the customer wants and their needs as to where they get a provider, they configure the provider, and then they have complete control of the distribution of the application or the VM or the container, depending on that provider.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it.
So it's a pure abstraction layer. So again, when I go back to the VMware vCloud Director example, which VMware vCloud Director was an abstraction of vSphere. Cloud Stack is an abstraction of what it basically plugs into at the bottom. OpenStack is this as well, but it seems like you've become a little bit more targeted with your approach to it, with this seamless approach.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that is related to the future or a vision for the future. I think we want to enable people to do computing anywhere. Okay, but always having a really consistent deployment and management experience, because we think that we want to allow those to run any workloads anywhere, in their office, data center, in the cloud, the 5G tower, factories, on trains. I mean, the thing is that they decide. They define the policy, they define the control access, they define the monitoring, they define the deployment application, they define everything, and not the cloud provider, and always, on a consistent, unique view to everything. I think we think this is the future. It's like a hybrid, multi-cloud. I don't know. It's like the European Commission calls the cloud-first continuum. It's like, that is the concept. I can run enterprise, but tomorrow I can say, okay, I have enterprise, but I have a peak of demand. I want to go to AWS. That's fine. But you can do that in 10 minutes with exactly the same workload. Okay, you don't have to use new APIs from AWS with their own templates, their own policies. Forget it. One thing we are doing as well is to support confidential VMs, because one of the barriers of adoption is confidentiality. So the idea here is that we are going to offer confidential VMs. That means that you will be able to run VMs in a confidential environment, so you don't have to worry about accessing to your data, and that is very good as well.
No, the value add, the proposition is very strong there, absolutely. So let's talk about your customers traditionally, where you came from and where you are now, because I came to see you guys because I was a service provider looking for multi-tenancy, right? I needed to be able to provide a multi-tenant portal for my tenants. So where do you stand today in terms of multi-tenancy support? And how are you still successful? And maybe this is going to lead into the VMware conversation in a few minutes, but are you still quite successful in the service provider market as well?
Yeah, I think that, cloud infrastructure is quite horizontal. I mean, it's not that we are addressing specific verticals. We have, we are strong in gaming. We are strong in cloud service providers as well. I think many of the small, medium cloud service providers in Europe, okay, and even in the US, they run OpenNebula, okay? In fintech as well. In academia, in research computing, there are many universities in the US that are using OpenNebula. We have also some agreements with telecom operators, because we are now defining integration in the 5G. I mean, the towers, so virtualizing. Because this business model in the edge, I mean, edge and 5G, they are completely interrelated, so they need to virtualize, all the DU and the CU, the 5G network there, and at the same time they're planning to offer, multi-tenancy, so they allow, third parties to run, VMs at the tower. So multi-tenancy is critical. This is one of the stronger, more important demands and requirements. We have improved a lot in multi-tenancy, new concept of virtual data centers to create like different isolated environments for the execution of different types of workloads. We also are working a lot on building, integration with external systems, for multi-tenancy and access control. So this is one of the main things. As well, I think that automation is another key part that is quite demanded. I mean, people are used now to run everything, on demand, automated. Both,
Yeah,
I mean, the deployment of the cloud,
code,
and the I would say, and the operation of the VMs, both things. Artificial intelligence. Okay, we are building and we are releasing in a few weeks, end of this month. We have the first development release of a new component, the AI Ops. And this is a new component of artificial intelligence for optimizing the operation of the cloud, anomaly detection, optimized placement of VMs, this type of things.
So just on that, so on the AI ops thing. So is that completely sort of embedded in the platform to handle a lot of the smarts about, like you said, placement, resource control, policies,
exactly.
or is it also the point where user can type in a natural way, deploy a VM in this data center at this time? Are you integrating that sort of ops? Or is it more
it's
just
both
at the back
things.
end?
Yeah. I mean,
awesome.
It's both
Very
things.
Cool.
Yeah, we are starting with the backend. This is more what we call AI for cloud. This is AI for cloud operations, observability, predictive analytics, anomaly detection, this type of thing that is more for the operation of the infrastructure. And at the same time, we are also providing higher level tools, for users. Another thing we are doing is cloud for AI. This is about what we can provide for workloads in AI training, for example. So that we are starting with those, and we are releasing in our marketplace new workflows for AI training, RAG, these type of things. Integrating with having face. I mean, we are doing a lot of things related to AI. Both levels, AI for cloud and cloud for AI, because there is a very big demand of companies that want to use OpenNebula in order to support the execution of AI workloads. And they need, this GPU tower, GPU access, the InfiniBand, for a low latency across the different nodes. They need, specific things for computing that, in the past were used only for HPC environments, and now
I was going to say HPC, but HPC has become very mainstream because of the requirements
because of AI.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It's
especially
impressive.
In gaming.
Yeah.
Especially in gaming. I'm Maltese background, and I know that in Malta they have a very strong gaming industry there, both betting and also gaming itself. So I wonder if there's quite a few of your customers that are in Malta. I'm sure there's a few. Anyway, just as a thought, because I know that gaming is huge.
And of course, one of the main markets for us now is the VMware, what we call the VMware opportunity. I mean, we receive dozens of emails from VMware customers and partners interested in virtualizing, and migrating to OpenNebula. This is huge. Okay, so this is a very big demand.
Talk that through, because I think from your perspective, because your target, probably from what you were describing, your target potentially wasn't so much the traditional VMware enterprise that's very stagnant and very old school. I see your target as being more the modern IT enterprises or the entrepreneurs that are building very innovative projects. So how has that shifted this year, or the last year and a half, because of what Broadcom has, brought into the VMware situation?
Yeah, I think that there are two things here. We realized that first thing, we had to integrate with enterprise components, that are what they use in the VMware environment. I mean, for example, Veeam for the backup and recovery, that's critical for us right now. And as you say, Veeam is not that widely used for the type of the target we have, That's one thing. So we have invest a lot in the integration of this component, and we are also working a lot on building new tools to allow a smooth and efficient migration process. This is critical as well, because these people come with big environments and they need help in the migration of the VMs. Anyway, it's clear that OpenNebula is not a clone, it's not a drop-in replacement of VMware. I mean, we cover almost the same functionality, the same capabilities, but the thing is in a different way. Okay, so this is something that when we have a VMware user that they want to use OpenNebula because we are more open or flexible, or maybe for pricing, the thing is, it's important how we train these people in order to learn about how OpenNebula can be used. And because it's a different concept. I mean, we are more Linux type users with some command line interface as well. We have the graphical interface, but the real potential of OpenNebula is the automation, the scripts, everything you can do, okay, thanks to these APIs that we provide in the Terraform, the Ansible. This is huge potential, and we invest a lot in, training them, and so they understand that they can use OpenNebula as a replacement of VMware, but at the same time, all the new things they can do and they can automate with OpenNebula that they were not able to use in the past, okay?
That's the big benefit for them is they're able to, maybe, because the way that VMware did the whole cloud consumption API model was always very confusing and always a lot more complex than what it needed to be. So what you're saying is once they migrate across, then they're able to get the benefits of a cloud platform, because your automation, your APIs, your infrastructure as code integration is a lot more concise and made for this new world.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they can customize the environment as well because they are used to having, this VMware product that they cannot modify. In our case, they can customize many different things. So they can even differentiate. Okay. So they can provide new graphical user interface, new integrations, new things that they were not able to do with VMware. And for cloud service providers, it's critical because they can provide something that is unique thanks to this customization for these open source products. So open source as well, this is a tool for the creation of new business models. And we think that this is huge. Open source creates a lot of value to the market.
Yeah. So with that, just to finish off, the time's gone very quick as well. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, time flies. Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Tell us about, where OpenNebula is going. I think you've alluded to, very much what you're focused on. Where's the next step? I know you just had the 6.10 release for long-term support, and I know that you're leveraging that as a bit of a stepping stone to the next major release, version 7. But talk us through in a couple of minutes where you're going to be in 3 or 4 years.
Okay, yeah. So one thing, we have 7.0 as next big release. 7.0 will be like next generation OpenNebula. So will be the first release of OpenNebula that will incorporate all of this innovation by the IPSI project, this huge funding that we have, and it will come with a lot of AI automation things. But we think it's not only about OpenNebula itself. Another thing we are building is an integration framework. That's very important. You have different types of technology partners. We have a marketplace for appliances. We have add-on catalog for companies that integrate with OpenNebula, storage, monitoring, networking. And we have a cloud provider catalog for those companies where you can deploy on demand, OpenNebula clusters. So we are now building a framework, an integration program that will improve a lot of this, because our aim, of course, is to lead this market, and the way to lead this market is to grow adoption, and for that we need to create an ecosystem. So we want to build this ecosystem around. So as we said, we want to go to the cloud edge continuum market. So companies that want to build a distributed environment to run their applications anywhere in this environment with no locking, with vendor neutrality, they can, freedom, and they can choose different alternatives. So this is what we want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a great vision, and I love the fact that you've built this not just in a short period of time. There's a level of maturity in the company, in the open source movement, in your contributions that you've got from that community, but also from your interactions with the EU initiatives. That's given you more power. So obviously you're doing very well, because a company like yours doesn't just succeed and thrive for, what is it, nearly 20 years now. It's a bit scary to think it's been 20 years, but you've done really well. So props to OpenNebula. It's always been one of my favorites. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you very much for being on episode 91 of Great Things with Great Tech.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Thank you so much, and have a great one. So thanks.
No worries. Hey, just as a reminder, thanks for listening to this episode. Stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to highlight companies and technologies shaping our world. Don't forget to follow us on social media at GTwGT Podcast and visit GTwGT.com for more great content and all past episodes. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. Please spread the word, and if you feel like it, drop a review. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Great Things with Great Tech.